toward the right direction in bidirectional user interfaces. Imagine a world of inconsistent usage of UI elements. Inconsistency that sometimes occurred even in products of the same vendor or even within the same product. A world with incorrect usage of text direction. It's very hard to use interfaces in such a world, but it exists. Thousands of million users all over the world face everyday problems of misunderstanding, usage errors, and loss of time due to incorrect and inconsistent interfaces. Those languages rely on unique bidirectional writing systems, mixing the native right-to-left script with left-right strings, Latin script, numbers, and other notations. Speakers of those languages are 12% of the whole world population, with Standard Arabic as the fifth most popular language in the world. The fifth part of the content language for world websites represented by bidirectional languages, with partial as the fifth most commonly used language in April 2021. In March 2020, Arabic was the fourth most spoken language by global internet users, with rapidly growing internet penetration. With an increasing number of bidirectional users and products in the last 3 decades, bidirectional design has become increasingly popular in professional HCI communities. Leading web companies and individual professionals have been trying to define the optimal direction of your elements in bidirectional interfaces. Both groups rely on the partial mirroring rule, mirroring just a part of left-to-right UI elements such as layout, navigation elements, etc., while maintaining the left-to-right direction for the elements not related to right-to-left script, numbers, graphs, etc. Despite extensive discussion on bidirectional design in professional community, there is a lack of empirical studies on how bidirectional users perceive and process UI elements direction. Consequently, there is a little evidence to rely on for guiding bidirectional design. However, we argue that empirical evidence for bidirectional design guidance is important. Bidirectional languages are different not just from left-to-right languages and their script directionality usage, but also from each other in some rules regarding specific information representation. Moreover, in psychological studies, it was shown that bidirectional speakers' direction preference could be mediated by left-to-right language proficiency level, number of years of studying mathematics, and other factors. These facts portray a picture that challenges the notion of simple universal bidirectional design formula and emphasize the need for a systematic study of this topic. To assess the nature of inconsistent UI elements in bidirectional interfaces, we reviewed the top Hebrew websites in Israel and identified several dozens of UI items that were used in both right-to-left and left-to-right versions. Of those, we selected 32 UI items and for further exploration, tentatively classified them into 5 categories. For each group, we reviewed potential resources to identify the roots of direction inconsistency. Comparing the items with the guidelines and the HCI literature, we concluded that the major reason for the inconsistent directionality of the elements is the paucity of current guidelines. No specific recommendations were observed for 20 out of 32 inconsistent UI items. The existence of 2 appropriate directions for the same information representation in Hebrew suggests another possible explanation for the multitude of UI elements with inconsistency. What if the direction of the element doesn't really matter? These findings indicate a need to gather more evidence regarding this topic. To answer this question and to demonstrate the usefulness of empirical data for the bidirectional design study, we conducted a questionnaire with Hebrew speakers. We based on UI items identified in the previous step and developed 2 types of stimuli, right-to-left and left-to-right UI item version, or UI items with ambiguous content. We found that Hebrew speakers exhibited a differential preferences for the directionality of UI elements. 13 items were preferred in their left-to-right version, 8 in right-to-left. For the direction of 6 UI items, there were no clear preferences. We observed that the direction preference of the Hebrew speakers corresponded to the recommended direction only for 3 UI items out of 7 mentioned in the guidelines. We didn't have enough information to explain some of the findings because it was an exploratory study. These findings require further investigation. For example, a puzzling finding is the lack of a direction preference for the departure icon in conjunction with a significant right-to-left direction preference for the arrival icon. You can find other open questions in our paper. One of the study's findings is that 4 out of 5 UI items groups described in our interface review were identified as is in the clustering analysis in the questionnaire. We believe that this classification can serve as a reasonable basis for future research and for bidirectional design guidelines. The described findings provide potential insights for bidirectional design rules and empirical evidence for the problem complexity. We call the HCI community to pay more attention to the bidirectional design topic and believe that joint research will help build evidence-based guidelines for bidirectional design and finally improve the experience of millions of bidirectional users. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions about our work, please feel free to contact us.